Have you been doing the lessons?
Yes.
Anybody find the one for today particularly challenging?
Oh, God, I found it wonderful. Oh,
Well, let's see if we can all find it wonderful.
They're all wonderful.
made me so happy.
To read it. This week it was very challenging. What lesson?
Love it still. So what lesson, what lesson number was it? 169.
169.
168, I told you to turn to it. Yeah. By grace I live, by grace I am released.
Oh, that's a lovely one.
I want to meet this grace.
322? 322?
Yep, this is right here.
323.
323?
Everybody have it? Good. Would you like to begin, Vinnie?
Okay. By grace I live, by grace I am released. Grace is an aspect of the love of God which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. It is the world's most lofty aspiration, for it leads beyond the world entirely. It is past learning, yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. Grace becomes inevitable instantly in those who have prepared a table where it can be gently laid and willingly received, an altar clean and holy for the gift.
Why do you suppose he talks so much about grace being available only when we are available to accept? In other words, we ties our acceptance to it, to having it. Not just something that we can have served up on a plate.
Because when we're in that mode, there's openness. There's openness and receptivity to experience grace.
I think he's trying to tell us, honey, that the idea of grace itself is so lofty in our perception of self-denial. It is so lofty that it's very difficult for us to even have a feeling for what that might be like, to think of ourselves as being filled with grace. And so he's offering us the opportunity to move into that space and to see what it would actually feel like to be filled with grace.
Is there a difference between being filled with grace and being filled with love?
What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's another form of love.
I was curious as to what definitions there would be out there on the internet, so I did look it up. And
Oh, you did?
Lots of different definitions, but the one that I really liked, it says it's divine influence in humans to regenerate, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
Could you say that again, Ted?
It's divine influence in humans to regenerate.
To regenerate. You could say that about sex, too, I suppose.
It is quite difficult to regenerate without sex.
Scratch that out.
The divine influence part, I really get. There seems to be almost a flow to grace
Yeah.
too. Like things seem to flow, and there's a joyousness and a
Yeah, and that's kind of what the way I looked at to regenerate. It just fills you up with more than you can imagine.
life.
Yeah.
Perhaps associated more with resurrection than erection.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Resurrection, huh?
This is the first time they've been like this.
This course is degenerating.
Tell Mary she missed it.
Hey, I'll never look anything up again.
Oh, please do. It's really spicing things up.
What would you expect from someone that before you would determine that they were filled with grace?
What was the first part of the question?
What would you expect from someone before you could accept that they were filled with grace?
What can you expect? You would expect them to be open and loving.
Yeah.
Peaceful.
What do you think he's trying to tell us when he says that no matter how you may see yourself, God sees you as filled with grace? What's the difference here?
I can remember it in my younger years when I would do something that I just thought was horrendous, and I would have to tell my mother about it, or she found out about it, and what I expected was, the finger going, shame on you, you should know, and the way she would just be so full of grace and love, and how she didn't see or hold things against me, That's what I think of as grace, is that, Marie.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. The point I was hoping to make was that instead of thinking that something was in the thing we were seeing, in other words, to be filled with grace, to say that, or to see that it would be what was in our mind as we looked at them that determined whether or not they were filled with grace.
Behavior is irrelevant.
What am
Behavior
I?
would be absolutely irrelevant.
So when it says, "By grace I live, and by grace I am released," what would we be released from? Our fears, our
Judgment.
Our self-perception.
judgments, self-defense,
Our self-perception.
self-perception.
That's the only thing we can ever be released from. There is nothing else to be released from.
Misperception?
Like release from my identity.
I'm sorry?
Release from my identity.
Yes. Self-imposed identity.
Yeah. Self-imposed identity.
That's similar to giving and receiving are the same. Has for me some similar meaning there. By grace I live, by grace I am released. Giving and receiving are the same. I think
It has many meanings, doesn't it?
yes.
Giving and receiving.
I think of
Nothing.
grace as a state wherein there is no judgment. That would be to me grace. Just that open acceptance of what's going on.
Yes.
That's nice.
How about unconditional love?
That's a
Which is
great
what
way
she
of
was
saying
talking
it.
about.
Indeed.
You know that I've always been bothered by the idea that you have to say unconditional love, because I don't think there's any kind of love except unconditional
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
love. So
Yes.
in essence, all real love or true love is unconditional.
Is unconditional. Yeah.
You know, it's not.
It's
I
free.
love you if you wash the dishes. No, that's not it.
I do love if you wash the dishes.
Well, I know what I'm doing tonight.
You want to take the second paragraph?
This is number 2?
Yeah.
Take those off. Read with these glasses. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. For grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real.
Just exactly what we were talking about.
Yes.
It's not out there. How would that be to see nothing but people who are filled with grace? How would you feel about that?
I'm very
Oh,
content.
that'd be glorious.
It'd be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Well, we know that there's something in our mind that deflects that, or else that's what we would be seeing. So what would that be?
Judgment.
Would it be self-appraisal? Can we judge the world in any way that is not a projection of our self-appraisal? No, we can't.
No, because we're always sizing up everything. That's how we figure out who we are as an ego, is we're constantly sizing everything up against us and us against it.
Well, that's a great way to describe it, honey.
It's just, that's
Yeah.
what gives us some kind of definition in the world. It's like continuous. Unless a moment of grace intervenes.
Doesn't that make it a lot simpler? Just to remember that the only thing I have to focus on is how I see myself for everything.
This, I don't know how to say it. This 2 weeks that I've been with the cold have been full of grace because I have not been able to do what I usually do. So I've been studying and reading, becoming aware of the fears that I've had and where they come from, the dependencies that I've had that I don't need to have anymore, all the illusions that, the conditioned things that I see as part of me, and letting them go, and for total forgiveness just all day long, and or saying it is what it is. It just is what it is, and acceptance. And I'm just full of gratitude for that. That I've allowed myself the time and just to be.
Giving
Yeah.
to yourself a little bit.
I think it's also nice, I think, to remind ourselves when we say it is what it is, to have first predicated that by asking the God self what it really is. Because it rarely is what we think it is. I say rarely, perhaps never.
Never.
I was just thinking this morning, when I was having my meditation, something kept grinding, something I wasn't letting myself be free to really move on. And So I ask, what is it that's creating this desire not to be at peace? And we'll come to it in a little bit, but there's a phrase in here where he talks about disappearing into God. And somehow that was bothering me a lot.
That you would disappear into God?
That I could disappear into God. That's what was bothering me.
Yeah.
Bothers me too. If I can't find you, I guess I know where you went.
Is this love or what?
I can see you go, God, where is you? Where are you?
I'm pretty sure. Any more discussion on paragraph 2? Raj?
Grace is not learned. The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain. Yet we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to awaken. It is not shut tight against God's voice.
Listen to that. Listen to that sentence. An open mind is not shut against God's grace.
That's right. With our openness and our receptivity.
Yeah.
That is really a significant statement because when I think many times of people's religious beliefs are pretty fixed and are not always open to other belief systems or whatever, I think that this is a wonderful thing to know, to be open-minded so that love can be spread and opened and experienced, received, given.
Isn't it funny? Most of the time we think of opening our mind as a way to be more receptive to love instead of fear. Yet what he's telling us is that most of the time our mind is not open, is not receptive to loving. It is more open and receptive to fear.
Well, fear is at least a lot more exciting than the boring love.
Depends on how old you are.
It's a lot.
You're on a roll, Linda.
Careful.
That movie, I'll take what she's having.
When Harry met Sally?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Something too that I feel is worth noting is also that we so often, especially those of us in spiritual circles with spiritual practice, think of openness and being open to love and having an open mind. We relate it so much to spiritual matters, things that seem coded with spirituality, even if it's just a little bit, but maybe not as easily taking a look at that with things that just are just regular everyday stuff, interactions with folks or
Especially
ideas, ideas we have in a, the fact that if we're not relaxing our opinion about someone, that we don't agree with what they're doing or like something they're doing because it's a really different habit than ours, or those little things, and there's so many of them throughout every day. And that's where moment-to-moment openness comes from is just openness to see who another person is as much as to see who we are. That there's almost equanimity in that, and equality and equanimity about just seeing, just being available to witness and be with whatever's right here. And it's really like every moment, like to have to be vigilant, so that we are relaxed and open.
I think that perhaps the greatest part of our learning capacity is learning to accept that it's there within us now. Everything that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Everything that we have ever wanted to achieve is present right now.
Yeah. The idea of just as I am,
Yes.
rather than just as how I'll be after I do the right thing or get the right whatever. What did I do with my pen? I threw it.
It's over on that side.
Raj, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Start again, please.
At the beginning,
At the beginning of that paragraph.
grace is not learned. The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain. Yet we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to awaken. It is not shut tight against God's voice. It has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home.
There are things it does not know. We study this course for years and we think we know it. And it tells us we know
Yeah.
nothing.
Well, it states, I think, in the Course that we don't receive knowledge until we cross the bridge. So how could we know?
I don't think knowing should be a goal. I think if you switch to being, that you're at the right goal. Can I be love? Can I be peace? Can I be joy? Rather than knowing all about it. What's that? That sounds like somebody in a college, in a bookstore someplace. It's nothing knowing. Being is a whole different game. Be what we wish to be. Be what God is.
You're going to lose out when you cross the bridge.
You're going to lose out when I what?
When you cross the bridge. You're not going to get your share of knowledge when you cross the bridge.
Who needs knowledge?
I have to talk to God about that.
Happy is more important than knowledge to me.
What did Einstein say? He said that imagination was more important than knowledge.
Imagine that.
Oh, that's nice.
I think he even made mention of the fact that imagination was knowledge.
Inspiration. So I'd be interested, Tom, in your comments. What you think about the statement that the open mind is open to things that it does not know. That it realizes that there are things it does not know.
I think that what he's, again, as he always does, try to tell us that all knowledge, all love, all everything is within us because we are a part of God. Everything is there. And it always seems to be hidden behind something that we don't know is there, which is our self-denial. How many times have we been cautioned about our self-denial? practically on every page, in one way or another. Everything that we deny is about us. Our self-perception is about us, totally. Not about other people that we might judge. It's about us. How do we best move through that? What is that bridge, Raj? What is that bridge but forgiveness? This open mind that he talks to us about, how is that available? Through forgiveness. Forgiveness, it's the art of learning not to judge, but to ask in place of judgment.
And in 2 words, the Course tells us, judge not. That's a whole sentence in front of the book. Judge not.
Wow.
You could read that, throw the book away, be happy ever after. Judge not.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I think that this business of receiving knowledge when you cross the bridge might be equated to resonating with reality.
I think the bridge is what you were talking about before, Roger. The bridge itself is the willingness not to judge, not to be so convinced, perhaps, of that our self-denial was real, but to be aware that if we didn't judge our mind, our sense of self, there's a whole different perspective of who we are that opens up. We don't have to do anything except not to judge, not to condemn ourselves, but just to be able to sit in that space of willingness to say, Father, I am here. I am here. And then wait and listen.
It's like I experience it like an absence of giving a crap about what I know. I don't give a crap. An absence of that. And the absence of that is very quiet. It's very quiet and actually quite joyous.
Yes.
And very relaxed.
Yes. What say you?
About anything in particular?
About our self-denial, our willingness to accept the truth of ourselves.
I think that's why we came into the illusion. It was a purposeful denial, and it was a collaboration.
Oh, purposeful denial, indeed.
And then we have to get to a point where we realize that we purposefully denied the idea of God.
Of what?
Of God.
Of God. Yeah.
And then that goes hand in hand with what each of us thinks God is, what we believe God to be.
So there is no denial except self-denial.
That's all it can ever be.
But these are the secret vows that we took, aren't they?
Yes,
Not to wake up, not to remember.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there is the proper use of denial. The Course talks about it.
That's a whole different ballgame. That's wonderful.
The
That's
proper,
like denying that you know everything, you know?
the proper use of denial, the way I look at it, is denial of the separation itself.
Yeah.
Deny the differences. Deny that there are differences between you and me and you and God and me and God and everybody and God.
As I understand it, the proper use of denial can only be employed at a higher level of consciousness, where you're looking down on the battlefield and you deny what's going on in the battlefield that seems to be real at that level. From this level, you can deny that it's real.
Oh, that's good to be reminded of, Raj. Yeah. Be more conscious of where you seem to be looking from.
Christ's vision.
I've also experienced higher consciousness by denying limiting thoughts in the moment that could be binding. And that's what I always hear talking about the right use of denial, is like denying access in a way. But that almost feels like too much work. It's more like just not getting enmeshed, not entertaining those thoughts. Like denying them my attention and my,
It's actually denial of self-denial.
Yeah. Yes, it is, isn't it?
It is,
Which is called self-acceptance.
which is called
Yeah.
self-acceptance.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
I think we're way more willing to see what's wrong with us than we are to see what's right with
Oh my
us.
goodness.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
And yet, within us all is the realization that it's all perfect. We're just not quite willing to hear it. Most of us aren't.
What's the difference between the world we see and the real world?
Nothing.
What's the difference between the two?
Well, the world we see is created by the ego. The real world is created by God.
My first thought is
It's in the way we see it.
form.
Yeah.
It's only in the way we see it. If I could see, Brian, if I were willing, not if I could see it, but if I were willing to see the truth of myself, I would see the world that God created.
The difference is our projection. That is the only difference.
Or our judgment.
Yeah.
Without judgment, the world is
We project
perfect.
another world, but that starts with like the seed of separation. But then we experience separation due to the projection. It's like a chicken or the egg thing almost, feels like.
I think we experience a separation due to the fact that we want it. It's our
And then
desire.
we start projecting.
Oh, that's so
And we
true.
project and
Yeah.
we see what we
Yeah, and
project.
then we start projecting.
And we don't really realize how true that is until we come to that point of being willing to accept our willingness. And when we find that we can't, we discover that we never have been able to see ourselves or to be willing to be the love of God. There always seems to be that mysterious thing that stands between us and the truth. It couldn't possibly be just our willingness to see it, could it? Just think about the magnitude of what we're saying. Nothing needs to change ever about anything except how we see ourselves.
Maybe we need to redefine what perfection is. Perfection is what is.
It is what you are.
Yeah. It's what everything is.
Doesn't it have something to do with being obsessed with form? So that there's so much attention on the form of everything rather than essence?
That's certainly a big part of our perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Zen, they teach form is formless, formlessness is form. And when I read that, it just like, huh? What are you saying? But if you sit with it for a while, form is formlessness, formlessness is form. Whoa. We are the ones who see form because that's what we want to see. And when we want to see formlessness, it's just sitting there waiting for us.
Well, it's all about giving it the meaning that best serves us.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's all about giving it a meaning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, I don't know if it's in the Course or not, but it's been a real base for me that I really love. And the statement is, love is the answer regardless of the question. We've all heard that. But it's a very good, what would you say, thing to follow. Very good choice to consider.
It's a good path.
Yes, simple and clear.
Any other comments? Kat, we're up to you.
We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has been already set. But we have also said the mind determines when the time will be and has determined it. And yet we urge you to bear witness to the Word of God to hasten the experience of truth and speed its advent into every mind that recognizes truth's effects on you.
Excuse me, I'm having a little mechanical difficulty here. I think I'm going to let that sit for a while. If I happen to keel over, why don't be worried. It's just because I don't have any air.
You want me to come and blow?
Just make it a change.
If you're looking for someone to give you mouth to mouth, you got the wrong person.
On one side. The next sentence is very, very powerful to me. The first,
Go ahead, June.
first sentence in 5. Oneness is simply the idea God is. And in his being, he encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but him. We say God is, and then we cease to speak. For in that knowledge, words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, no part of the mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like its source itself, it merely is.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That is pure poetry as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, it is.
Nothing more to say.
Yeah.
And yet all of that is what we must say about ourselves. We must be willing to see that greatness in ourselves.
If all that is God,
Yes.
we're part of all that is. I mean, come on, there's logic here. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're a part of God.
So So when we look at our brother,
And
we see God.
him too.
I think it gets back to what Tom was saying about our own self-perception. It's easy for me to see God in you. It's a little bit more difficult to see it in me.
That's why God invented mirrors.
But if there's only one of us here,
Yeah. I got that up here.
up here,
Yeah.
we gotta get it
Yeah,
here.
that's right.
But we just go around all day saying, God is.
You don't even have to say it, just think it.
Okay, just think it.
When we wonder why it seems to be so difficult to see a sinless world, we rarely realize that it's simply because we are unwilling to see an innocent self.
Our own innocent self?
Our own innocent self.
Well, they said there's only one child of God. So what is there to see?
Creation, huh?
One. And that's,
And Nicole's Course in Miracles class in Fort Townsend, I think it was last week, where she did a meditation where each of us got a message. And Doyle was there, and the message that Doyle got was, my innocence is guaranteed by God.
Lovely.
Yeah.
There's a little more to it than that too, and I can't remember it.
I think
There
that's
was a
all
little,
these.
there was a little bit more, no, there's a little bit more after that, and I can't remember what it was. But that was the
Yeah.
important, yeah. Yeah.
Any other comments? Scott?
We cannot speak, nor write, nor even think of this at all. It comes to every mind when total recognition that its will is God's. That its will is God's has been completely given and received completely. It returns the mind into the endless present, where the past and future cannot be conceived. It lies beyond salvation, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ. The Son of God has merely disappeared into his Father, as his Father has in him. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state.
How does that make you feel?
I love that. That's just the truth. That's just the truth.
The world has never been at all.
For me, the direct experience of that, when I experienced that, was absolute relief and incredible laughter. Incredible laughter.
The two would have to go together.
Yes, because like, oh my God, you know,
What are we,
just
this game
laughter,
you're
what a
playing?
joke, huh?
This game we're playing. I mean, this.
Oh, in such a sense of freedom in the self-same moment. I mean, everything all in one moment, you know, just wow. Wow. What to have suffered all that time till that moment, kind of
Yeah.
an insight, right? Like, and how unnecessary it is.
This is what I was talking about earlier, before everybody got here, watching Muji and also watching Fred Davis.
Watching
Muji,
and who?
Fred Davis.
I'm not familiar with Fred
He's
Davis.
he's written a book called The Book of Undoing, and he claims to be able to help people awaken. And some people have said, yes, that's happened. So the one thing they have in common is both Muji and Fred Davis when some of these people obviously have awakened, they just burst into laughter and they cannot hardly stop. They just go on and on laughing at the top of their lungs, you know.
Yeah.
And realizing,
Yes.
at least this is the way I see it, realizing how could they ever have thought this was real?
Yes, yes. Like, well, there's so much joy there too. There's a lot in the laughter. But yeah.
I got that book, The Book of Undoing, from Tom Hatcher when he brought in that whole big case of books, you know.
Oh,
And it's a very good book.
great.
Sure.
Yeah, you go ahead, Brian.
This is beyond experience we try to hasten. Yet forgiveness, taught and learned, brings with it the experiences which bear witness that the time the mind itself determined to abandon all but this is now at hand. We do not hasten it, in that what you will offer was concealed from him who teaches what forgiveness means.
Take the next paragraph too, Brian, please.
All learning was already in his mind, accomplished and complete. He recognized all that time holds and gave it to all minds, that each one might determine from a point where time was ended, when it is released to revelation and eternity. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. We're sitting in the theater watching the movie over again.
The journey without distance to a place we never left. That's what's talking about here. We've always been in the mind of God and nowhere else.
What would have to happen for you to see that right now?
You have to leave this body.
Would you? Why?
No, you don't. Well,
We're in
no.
thought in the mind of God. That's where we would have to be to realize that. We have to know that that's where we are.
Is there something, this is just a question, is there something about being in the mind of God that is not available to us as long as we are in a body?
As long as we are with.
In a body?
Well, the body is part of the tiny mad idea that it's also a thought in the mind of God. There's only one mind.
There is one mind.
And 7 billion bodies.
It's just relaxing the mind around the idea of the body. That's all
One.
it is. It's not the body.
Yeah.
It gives the body too much power.
When you asked that question, my shoulders went down and I said, let go.
I got acceptance, same thing, you know, let go of just accept.
Any
Accept that
resistance,
gift.
anything, just let go. That's all.
Which is available to us at any moment.
Yeah.
What if we're already in heaven, we just don't recognize it?
Linda, you remember some time recently, a few weeks ago, I think, you remarked about a Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna. He was an enlightened monk. Do you remember?
The name, I heard the name.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring it up is because I just finished a book by him that about him. And he talks about this very thing, that he achieved that level. He was an enlightened individual around 1800. He could be in this world and not of this world, but not simultaneously. And when he was not in this world, he would be either appear unconscious, but he was in a trance, or he would be totally disconnected from what's around him and dancing and laughing and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if that's what we're talking about.
What do you think?
Well, I think that if that's the case, I'm not sure I want it.
That's probably why you don't have it.
Why might you not want it?
Well, there's another monk story that can answer that question. He was at a party one time and someone walked up to him and said, "I just heard your son died." And he said, "Oh, I always knew he was not immortal."
I always knew.
Yeah, he was not mortal. That was his response. I mean, there was no sorrow.
Emotion.
Yeah. Well, I always knew that he was not immortal.
Is that okay?
Not with me. I mean, I couldn't do that. I mean, I don't know if that's where I want to be.
You might do that if you were that monk, though.
Oh, yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
What if we could be that at peace and that clear?
Would we be something less if you were affected by your son's death? Would you be something less
Less than...
than the monk who was unaffected? In other words, if you didn't recognize your immortality, would you be something less? I think these are a lot of the questions that we get confused with sometimes.
Well, my thinking would certainly be different. I don't know if we could say better or worse or less.
Would you be less loved by God?
I don't know.
Jim McKenna says the same thing. He's someone who claims to be enlightened. And he says that he just let everything from his past go, including family. Because he had a different outlook on the whole thing.
What would happen if you didn't let it go?
He'd be stuck here.
Would we? Would we? And if we would be stuck here,
God is
and
inevitable.
there's no difference between here and heaven, then so what?
Yeah.
One of the most comforting things to me is when I remember if I really feel stuck, is God is inevitable. Whatever I'm really
You see, we talk
locked onto
about
right now.
unconditionally accepting the love of God, and yet we're just now beginning to talk about some things that are reasons, supposedly, that we couldn't accept it, that we would be something less. Understand this for just a moment. Your holiness does not depend on anything you do or anything you believe. It doesn't depend upon your acceptance of it or your rejection. It simply is.
It is what it
It's
is.
changeless. It's the truth. It is. That's what she said.
We have to arrive at the place where there are no excuses for not accepting ourselves just the way we are right this moment.
No matter what's going on.
No matter what's going on.
Yeah.
No matter what our belief is, nothing.
What do you mean?
Isn't
That's the moment that we're free. That the mind is free then to select the truth. When there's no reason. There's nothing there that would change. Absolutely nothing. You are the presence of God, regardless of what you think or do in any moment.
And to me, that's the only way that you could feel totally loved by God at all times.
I don't know how you would phrase it differently.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
how could you?
reminded of Gary Renard's third book, the title, Love Has Forgotten No One. I don't know if that's a quote from the Course. Probably is.
Say it again.
Love has forgotten no one, no matter what happens, no matter what we think we've done.
Which takes us back to grace.
We are indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
We are indeed talking about the reality of the state of grace. A state that we exist in and have no control over. None whatsoever.
We're in heaven whether we like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
We are indeed, Jim. Yes. Can we accept that?
If we did, would we be acting like Ramakrishna?
Or not?
We don't know.
Or not.
We'd be acting like you.
He's not the only awakened master that's ever walked the planet, so they don't all act just like him. So how do we know? We're going to do it uniquely, each one of us.
If everything that is true right now, whether I accept it or reject it, it's true anyway, then find me a reason not to accept yourself in this moment, just the way you are.
The only reason I can come up with is I can't accept that as all that I am. Because that would be way too limiting.
Could you accept that that's all you were? Could you accept that that's not all you were before you accepted that? You see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. It's sort of a love it to leave it type of way I look at it, is that as long as what we resist persists. But I don't see any reason why we can't love ourselves exactly the way we are and know that that's not all that we are.
Well, that's
think-
still
I think
holding on to
that-
something, though, so it keeps oneself from totally relaxing, I think.
I think that what you said is totally true.
Yeah.
Well,
Because it's
I
still
think
trying
that the
to,
opposite is also true.
because it still tries to hold that there's something else that we are, like something else somewhere else, and it creates another idea.
if you think of love, is there any direction it's not facing? No. Is there anything that's not shining itself onto? No. So all there is love and our judgments. Our judgments cause pain. Love takes it away. We're learning this, but we're learning it slowly because we like our judgments. I mean, look, we voted for that guy, or we didn't vote for that guy, whatever that is. So we're in this place where we know that there's pure love, but we're not quite ready to buy it today. Hence, form.
Any more comments? Who's next?
Where are we?
Number 8.
Number 8?
No, number 9.
9.
Oh, that's right. For oneness must be here. Whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled by Him who wrote salvation's script in His Creator's name and in the name of his Creator's Son.
Daddy, tell us what that says in your own words.
What that means? That means that it's already been done. We're already one. We're just living this dream that is not necessary. That we're already in, like we said, we're already in heaven. We're already God. We're already perfect. We just haven't accepted it yet.
Him who wrote salvation script, are they talking about the Holy Spirit there?
What do you think?
I think so, yeah. Fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled. We're playing these roles that are being recognized as perfectly fulfilled.
That's why I said,
I love the next line.
We're actors on the stage, aren't we?
there's no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. Kind of makes you feel kind of stupid, doesn't it? Oh dear.
That's an interesting paragraph. Then that one, then 10 is interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Like 9 wasn't.
Well, do you want me to read the next one?
Sure.
When revelation of your oneness comes, it will be known and fully understood. Now we have work to do. For those in time can speak of things beyond, and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already. Yet what meaning can the words convey to those who count the hours still, and rise and work and go to sleep by them?
How would the awakening process feel to you if you knew that you were going to awaken just as a matter of course? Not because of anything you did, but if you were going to one day simply accept the recognition that you were a part of God, that you were the grace of God. You didn't have to do anything. In fact, there isn't anything you could do to keep it away. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen. How would you feel about awakening like that? How would you feel about something happening to you that you had no control over? That's what I'm saying.
You put it that way, it's not quite so exciting.
See?
I like it the other way.
When you get right down to where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Well, what is it that could be more instrumental in stopping us from awakening than exactly that? Because we've just said, maybe we don't really want it. Isn't that what you said, Raj?
You have to want it so bad that it's more than anything else.
Maybe we want it too much. What if it were just absolutely inevitable? That's it. That's going to happen. I am as God created me. I am as God created me. Not I'm going to be. Not I need to accept it. Nothing. I am as God created me.
I think it would help a little bit if we could have an experience of what it is that we are asked to want. Just
Okay.
even for a short period of time. And then we would have something to go by, and a yardstick to measure.
Roger, I think he's given us exactly that. I think that is the purpose of forgiveness.
Roger just described the holy instant, didn't he?
I think forgiveness is the holy instant.
Forgiveness to me is the realization that nothing happened that I ever need to forgive. And that works for me.
I see the resistance lately of the forgiveness in me that I'm wanting to let go of.
But you don't have to, honey. Want to do it, then do it. Want to do it, I'm not too sure if I'm going to do it, is okay.
It's okay.
It's perfectly okay. I cannot change what God created. I am as God created me. It's the way it's always going to be, folks. Accept it or don't accept it. Awaken tomorrow, or 1,000 years from tomorrow. It's all the same. And when you awaken, you'll see that all those intervening years were nothing. Time has no meaning once we let go of separation. If there's nothing to separate, time has no meaning whatsoever.
Maybe God's behind that door.
Emergency control room.
No maybes about it, brother. Find me a place where he isn't.
I'm trying to apply what this conversation is saying to my present dislike of Donald Trump. Thinking, well, there's a practice there.
The truth is, you have no dislike for Donald Trump.
Really?
Absolutely none. You have no knowledge of him. There's nothing there for you to like or dislike.
Oh.
That's the value.
Ah.
That's the power of perception.
Yeah.
Perception limits our world to what we see in ourselves.
What we see in
What?
ourselves.
In ourselves.
So whatever we think of Donald Trump is what we think of ourselves.
Well, when
It's
you,
a
Call me
simple
president from now
It's a simple,
on.
simple projection.
well, when you first said that, Linda, what came in me immediately was, well, try not paying any attention to him for a while. I mean, really, don't
Yeah.
watch anymore, don't listen anymore, don't anything, and just see what's there.
Or shift your attention to Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
She's not as easily found on TV.
In the debate, though.
She's running for president.
She's all over the
Oh,
computer.
is that her?
I mean, you just have to look on the internet. She's everywhere. But in the app, you know, when you're not putting the attention on, and he's just not there to be projecting onto, it's just
That's a
interesting.
crutch, honey.
It's interesting to see the difference. It is, and then maybe come back and take another look and see what happens as an observance of what your mind is doing with it. You know.
I am
It could-
looking at my feelings about Donald Trump as a very good teaching experience. And I'm going to learn something from it.
Yeah.
And this whole discussion that we're having here weekly and today particularly is very helpful to, you know, to really look at why do I dislike him, or, you know, you could apply it to anything else that comes up. I don't know. But I have to take a look at myself. It's the most important thing.
In the front of the book, it says something that to me really landed deep. It says, I can be hurt only by my judgments. Now,
Oh, that's
all you
great.
got to do is
Thank you.
take that and put it on somebody like Donald Trump
Yeah.
or on anybody.
Right.
Thank you, that's
On
a great
your
reminder.
spouse, your neighbor, I can be hurt only by my
By my
judgments.
judgment.
Right.
Judge your own misperceptions.
And then there's the shortest sentence in the course says, judge not. Well, there's the
Well,
answer.
and that's what Tom,
It's been
that's
saying
what I
all
think you were
night.
pointing to when you told her you don't know anything about him, you
Yep.
can't like him or not like him or any of those things because you don't know anything.
Perception
But that's what
doesn't go there.
that's all I meant by not paying attention anymore. Don't think about him for a while and see
Yep.
what that is to not know anything about him and not have any idea. And then when you come back and start to believe you do have some ideas, to realize, oh, wait a minute, there was some peace there when I didn't seem to have any idea about him. But and with anything, I mean, with anything, and I've done that in myself. That's why, just to feel what it's like to stop having the judgments about the person.
Good.
And because I really hear that, what Tom is saying, because in the Course tells us that.
I think we're all learning
That
how
we don't have the
how
capacity to
s-
judge.
Yeah, how to see
We just don't
and
have
not
the
judge.
capacity.
Just see and
Yeah.
not judge. And it
That
is a
happens,
learning
Jim.
lesson, and it takes a while.
That happens only when we call for the Holy Spirit to see the face of Christ in everything.
Yep. Show me, Holy Spirit. And what the Holy Spirit will show us is the love that's there.
What the Holy Spirit then shows you is your face. And once you see your face, is the face of Christ. Everything else is the same. Everything.
It's interesting that come up because that was my email today from Mother Teresa. I see the face of Christ in everyone I meet.
What a powerful mantra.
Yeah.
What's even more powerful, though, Jim, is to claim that it's your face. That's the most powerful one, because that's the one that's hardest for me to make. It's always hardest to say, I am the face of Christ. As Brian said a moment ago, it's not easy, but we can, on occasion, say, I see the Christ in you. But how many times can we, in all honesty, say, I see the Christ in me?
Or I see myself in you.
Looking in a
Yes.
mirror would be a good exercise, probably.
I've done that.
We always are.
I've done that too. Looking
Whether we
into our
know it or
own,
not.
looking into
That's
our
it.
own
Look into
eyes.
your
We're
own
always
eyes.
looking in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like
It's-
that one statement that Tom has memorized and uses it quite often. This, take this from me and look upon it, judging it for me. Let me not see it as a sign of sin and death, nor use it for destruction. Teach me how not to make of it an obstacle to peace, but let you use it for me to facilitate its coming.
Where is that?
Page 419.
I've got that one, that card every day. Written out.
419.
Boy, if we remembered that,
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a good one to glue to the television, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good one to glue to the TV at this time. Or the coffee table or wherever you always sit when you grab the remote.
That's where we're
Hold it in one's lap when watching it. What did you say? Four?
have we finished the lesson?
Oh, I'm in the wrong
I'd
thing.
like
That's
to get
fine.
through. I'd like to get through this. If we, Teddy,
I
did you
wrote
finish?
peace under it. Bring some peace.
Teddy?
Did you finish the lesson?
I finished 10.
And who's,
11.
It's opposite then. that you have work to do to play your part. The ending must remain obscure to you until your part is done. It does not matter. For your part is still what all the rest depends on. As you take the role assigned to you, salvation comes a little nearer each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God.
Well, there's a short sentence there that I think is very powerful for me, that I might start saying about everything. It does not matter.
Do you want me to continue?
But it kind of addresses what Roger said. But your part is still what the rest depends on. It's still important.
It would have to be if God is everything, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Sally?
Forgiveness is the central theme that runs throughout salvation, holding all its part in meaningful relationships. The course it runs directed and its outcome sure. And now we ask for grace, the final gift salvation can bestow. Experience that grace provides will end in time, for grace foreshadows heaven, yet does not replace the thought of time, but for a little while. So grace is kind of like
What does that mean to you, Sally?
transition that you glimpse the totality of eternity in heaven in this in where we're at right now.
Yes. Yes.
What page are you on?
324, John.
324.
In the workbook, Jim.
Oh, the workbook. All kinds of 324s. Yep.
Check.
Jim, you want to?
Paragraph 13, Jim, at the bottom.
13 at the bottom. The interval suffices. It is here that miracles are laid, to be returned by you from holy instance you receive.
I'm sorry.
Through grace.
Jim, read that again.
What's that?
Read that again, please.
Okay. The interval suffices. It is here that miracles are laid, to be returned by you from holy instance you receive through grace in your experience to all who see the light that lingers in your face.
Through holy instance you received through grace. Ah.
Wow.
Has he ever been more clear to tell us how to have a holy instant? Receive it through grace.
So go ahead and finish. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness and brought a clear reflection of the unity he felt an instant back to bless the world? How could you finally attain? Wait, how could you finally attain to it forever while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? Shall I go ahead? No.
Are we willing to take a step into timelessness? Think about that for a moment. What does that mean? Just feel that. What would happen to you if you took a step into timelessness?
I think we do that, but they're brief, and we remember them sometimes afterwards.
I think we think about it very seriously, Jim. But I don't think we have ever, I don't know of anyone. And when I've asked Brother, she tells me just to be concerned with myself, with anything else. But, so I'm concerned about whether or not I have ever been brave enough to be willing to step a moment into timelessness. Would I come back? Would I disappear? What is there in timelessness?
Well, I think this paragraph is saying that we would come back simply because how could you finally attain to it forever while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? That means the world, the only way to go there and not come back in my mind is if this entire thing is gone. Because as long as I think that I've projected all of you out there, then I am in timelessness, and then I come back, perhaps, Nicole, like you did. As long as when your child was crying, or you're brought back in, but you bring back with you a new light, as it talks about in a couple of the lessons.
I agree with you, Tom.
Well,
We would come
there-
back. But I was speaking of my fear, that maybe I wouldn't. That maybe something would be so beautiful that I would be tempted not to come back.
But then, would you really need to? Because everything you feared losing would be there with you, wouldn't it?
I hope so.
Timelessness, I mean, for me, Tom, it wasn't like 100% unawareness of the world. It's unawareness of the world as I knew it previous. Unawareness of the world as we're talking about it here. As I had mentioned, for some reason, the one that always sticks in my mind with imagery and everything is the time when I was in the toilet. And I heard someone, I think it was James, my ex-husband, from the kitchen calling to me about dinner. And I didn't know how long I'd been on the toilet. Now, he didn't act like it was anything bizarre, so I probably was only there a few minutes or whatever, but I really didn't have any awareness. If it had been 3 hours, 3 minutes, I had no idea, and I didn't care. And the only way I became aware about the world in that real physical kind of way was because a question came. And so then there was thinking, oh, okay, sure, I'll be right there. And then it was like, oh, I don't even know how long I've been here, you know, and okay, I need toilet paper, and the things that start coming, you know, it all just starts coming, the things you need to do to now move yourself from this place to that place. But it's not the kind of thinking that we normally always have cycling, and it feels very, very different. It's totally spontaneous, but there's still total functionality. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's the most freeing thing in the world. It's the most freeing thing in the world. It's so freeing. It's just the sense of absolute presence. If you can imagine just total presence with whatever is in front of you, near you, that you're beholding right now. You're just in it totally, so absorbed in it, totally being the experience, totally. So I can't say there was disappearance into light and nothing, and, you know, I had that experience too. Both of them were a timelessness, but I still was walking around the world with no sense of time whatsoever and not caring. There wasn't something there that could care. There wasn't the same identity there that could really care about all that.
That's beautiful. Just beautiful.
It's just so freeing. I can't even tell you. I can't describe to you how freeing it is.
Yeah,
It's just total lack of
You just did.
concern, absence of concern.
That's what happens in the books that I've been reading about death. That's what happened. They go through this period. And so when they're going on to the other side, making this transformation, it's with peace, it's with gentleness, that's what comes during this process. It takes a while for the body to go and for the body to let go and all that kind of a thing. But in all the readings that I've done, that's what happens. Preparing us for heaven or wherever with God. You got an inkling of it first.
Well, and when someone passes, the light that's in the room is just, it's beyond words. There is so much light and the same sense of timelessness.
Yeah.
What if we
And
saw
almost
that
lack of
same light
space,
before
almost
they passed?
also like being out of space, and also when I was experiencing the timelessness like I described to you for those 3 or 4 months, and I shared the experience of being in the toilet, there was lack of spatial, that was all different too. You know, aware of the world, you're walking around and doing things, but it's not the same, it's not, everything's illuminated, you know, there's such an awareness of that oneness.
Yes.
But it isn't like, and then when you said, Brian, how he let go, this man you mentioned, of his whole past, including family and everything, well, I don't honestly see how that's necessary per se to be awake in the body, because they're all still there and they're all illuminate, you know, it's all the same illumination.
I don't think he said it was necessary. It's just
He just let it go. He just relaxed totally around it.
because he
didn't care.
realized it was part of the dream.
Right. See, that I could imagine. Yeah. That deep of a relaxation around it. Yeah.
I need to go. So,
it's fine.
yeah, I thought I was here at 3 o'clock. I thought I'd be out by 5, but I do have someplace I need to be.
That's fine.
That's
And,
fine. We're going to break up.
I will
We can't get along without you.